5 years ago, Mark Saunders became chief of the Toronto Police Service. He was a 32-year veteran and also the first black cop to get that top job, serving the most diverse city in Canada. He led the force through terror attacks, a serial killer, and a spike in gun violence. Then, earlier this month, amidst a global movement focused on anti-black racism and police brutality, he surprised everyone and announced his resignation from that post 8 months before his term was to expire. With us now to reflect on that decision, 5 challenging years and a career of service from his office at police headquarters, there's Toronto Police Chief Mark Saunders. Chief Saunders, it's good to see you again. How are you doing these days?
Good seeing you, Steve. Very well.
Good to hear it. Everybody wants to know this question, and we're going to start with this right off the top, and you're not going to be surprised at all. At a moment in history when the entire continent is focused on a supremely important conversation about anti-black racism and the police's relationship with those communities, why is the first black police chief in this city's history leaving his post early?
Well, you know, it's a combination of a couple of things, and it's kind of tough when I'm talking about personal things when I'm wearing the hat as chief. But as I'd stated earlier, there were some personal issues with respect to why I was stepping down. It had nothing to do with what was going on. In fact, the discussions on it were had with some of my closest friends prior to all of this. And so with discussions, how I came in as chief was with family, and I wanted to make sure that I left with family. And it was funny because what was happening was, as I was talking about it, there was a lot of talk about, we need you to stay for another 5 years, not from the board, but from a lot of other people. And what would it take to keep you here longer? And so I wanted to make that definitive. It's done. I'm leaving. There was no, when I signed for the year, it was a year. There are a couple of things that I wanted to accomplish. And I will say that this COVID-19 has manifested differently to a lot of people, including my family. And so rather than have people think that there is a potential that I may stay longer, I stopped it. And I had discussed with the mayor and with the chair before that announcement. So it wasn't anything to do with the time of day or the events around the world. It was really about family first.
You famously had a kidney transplant in the middle of your term. Does your early departure have anything to do with your health?
No, my wife's kidney's doing well. Thank you for asking. But no, it has nothing to do with health in any way, shape, or form. It's so funny. I've done almost 38 years, and people are going, "Why?" It's close to 38 years of policing. But really, as I've stated, all of the reasons, the vast majority are personal. And I like the way that I've been a part of bringing the organization to where it is right now. And I had a meeting with my senior officers a couple of months ago, and there was a real epiphany for me. I looked around, and for the first time, I felt really, really good about where this organization is going, with the leadership that this organization now has. And so I'm excited about where this organization is going to go, and I'm glad that I was a part of that.
Well, can I follow up on that? How different is the service you lead today from the one you took over 5 years ago?
Well, first off, I have learned from the best. All the chiefs prior to me have done amazing jobs during their time. And I will say that we're now in a new era, Steve, where things are moving exponentially now, where everybody has a voice, and that voice has movement. Things can happen. And so when I got into the modernization plan, when I worked with a transformational task force, it was to develop a model that was nimble, to develop a model that could deal with the exponential change in which the world moves at. And we're moving towards that, and I'm really proud of that accomplishment.
Okay, you know I take no joy in putting these criticisms to you, but I'm reflecting what I hear out there, and I'm going to give you a chance to respond to it. But, you know, critics have described you as a guy who's too happy with the status quo and too happy with sort of ingratiating yourself with the establishment of the city. They say you were the safe pick for the chief's job in the first place, and you didn't provide the shakeup that the police service needed. How would you respond to all of that?
Well, I'd say, you know, a lot of people are ill-informed. If you looked at what this organization did, Steve, this is an urban city, 4th largest in the North American continent. And the fact that I could sit down with my co-chair then, Andy Pringle, and create a model of what this police service should look like by incorporating the community right from ground zero, right from a blank canvas, was phenomenal. And the fact that we did that, first we did the interim report, and then we traveled north, south, east, and west across the entire city and said, look, Are we moving in the right direction? Getting their buy-in, getting their understanding of what was going on, and then creating the final report. And that final report it resonated with the public because we were using their words. We were listening to what they were saying. And we're at a spot right now where some exciting things are happening. We're at a spot where we've done amazing things. When we talk about things that we have changed, now the discussion about anti-Black racism, I added a third day of training dedicated to two things. Number one, community engagement. And the second piece was dealing with people that live with mental health. It is critical in today's environment if we're going to define value in a public sector.
And the criticism that some saw that you, and again, this is their words, that you ingratiated yourself with the white power structure of this city in order to get and keep your job. Your response to that?
I don't know who these people are or what they're saying. If you look at what I have done over the past 5 years, we have moved this organization forward, and there's no denying that. You can use incredible university words. At the end of the day, we created some fantastic deliverables, some things that are sustainable. And when we talk about the type of training that we have incorporated in policing today, it's second to none. People from all around the world are coming to see how we're doing what we're doing.
Who or what was the biggest impediment to your pursuing your agenda?
Well, I won't say biggest impediment. I think we were moving at a fast rate. And what we felt would have been successful was, everyone asked, why is this report different than every other? And the answer was because a lot of people are on board. A lot of people wanted to make these changes. And I would say that we moved at a rate that was much faster. Laws aren't moving at the speed of technology today, and that becomes a roadblock. When we're trying to create an evergreen environment in a very, very slow, robotic, moving environment, it's not healthy. But what it does is it starts to pulse for others to say, you know what, we've got to pick it up. So the impediments right now, I think that we have to figure out how words can translate into actions quicker. Especially when you've got entities that are ready for those things to take place.
Well, you didn't specifically name the who or the what, so I'm going to be a little blunter this time and see if we can nudge your answer along a little more. Mike McCormick is a very able representative for the Toronto Police Union. His job is not to do your job. His job is to stick up for his guys, and I use that term in a gender-neutral way, of course. And that's what he would say he is doing. I wonder if you thought he was an impediment to your doing what you needed to do.
Well, we had some complex moments. There's no denying that. But I can tell you, we both have the same goal at the end, which is we want the best for every member of the organization. The how is what's different. He takes a different approach than I do. And so I'm responsible for the conduct of everybody. And so when you play in those two lanes, it does cause frustration at times. But at the end of the day, slow and steady wins the race. One of the big things was the shift scheduling. It was a 36, 37-year model in today's times. It needed to be adjusted. And, through efforts and understanding, we've now moved towards that. And by all accounts, everything is looking great. Unfortunately, this pandemic has set in, which has slowed a few things down, Steve. But I think it's going to create some great opportunities in the months to come. Well,
let me ask you about trust, because there's a couple of quotes here I want to read to you. You once said, "Public trust is a fabric that creates community safety." The mayor of the city has said trust has been eroded. How much would you say Torontonians actually trust their police service right now?
There are strong elements of trust, but listen, as law enforcement in today's environment, if you're not always working towards public trust is everything. It is the pulse of the relationship between community and police. And if you lose that, you've got to figure out what you need to do quickly to turn that around at all costs. And when we speak of our plan, it is community-centric. It is done so deliberately because this is what's going on today. Steve, look at our protests. We have protests with 7,000 people. You never saw a shield from any of my members. To me, that shows that there are elements of trust that are there, but we're not where we need to be. There needs to be a lot more work done, and we're willing to make that work happen. We need to get to the tables to figure out, what do you want of us? How can we continue the relationships? And it's through actions and time that develop public trust.
I'm now going to ask you about what may have been the most iconic moment in the anti-Black racism protests, certainly in this capital city of the province of Ontario. Let's roll that tape right now, and then we'll talk about it. Go ahead, please.
Show we're about peace. Take a knee. Take a knee. take a knee.
Put your hands up, take a knee, baby.
Put your hands up, take a knee,
Hands
guys.
up, take a knee, baby. There we go.
Great.
Chief Saunders, what went into that moment where you took the knee with demonstrators?
I understood what was going on, and it's a wake-up call for all of us, and for all my years in the seat, all the town halls that I've gone to, all of the conferences that I've gone to, every single time I have people that get up and represent the youth. It's like, the youth want this, the youth want that. What I saw that day, Stephen, if you roll the tape again, I saw young men and young women. These were people that never come to these events, never have a voice. They have people that represent them. To me, this represented hope. And I said to them, keep spreading the word, stay focused on the message. Don't let others distract from the message that needs to be put out there. These people want to carve their future, the way in which they want the world to be. And so if we don't respond quickly, we will lose them. And if we lose them, then all of this is for naught. And I think that that's critical. And so by me taking the knee, it's me showing, listen, I'm a black man too. I understand why you feel this way, but we have to get to the table. Things have to be done and actions have to take place. These protests that are going on, it is a message that people are frustrated. They're frustrated on what's happening. You can't say on one voice that all laws are treated equal, and then on the other spectrum, you're not going to deliver a meal to this address because of postal code. So there are a lot of issues that are taking place. And right now they've translated it to police and community. It is a system that is defaulted right now. The police deal with the symptoms of that disease each and every day. So there's a bit of sleight of hands going on. The funding has to be, it's not just giving a bag of money, it's understanding what every single community needs in that moment, why they need it, and then creating the right sustainable funding in order to make it work.
Well, I certainly heard plenty of praise, Chief Saunders, for that gesture that you took on that day, and you received numerous compliments for it. And it was an impressive, as I suggested earlier, iconic demonstration of solidarity with those protesters. Others would point out that 4 years ago, you had the opportunity to do that with Black Lives Matter protesters who were camped outside the building that you are in right now, and they were highlighting the death of a black man at the hands of police, Andrew Loku, and you declined at that time to meet with them. And I guess they're wondering whether that cause was any less just than this cause.
No. What it was a methodology. The point one version had one solution to everything: shut it down. That was it. If you go back and you listen to my quotes, I said, listen, anyone wants to come in, get to the table and have some meaningful conversations, my door is always open. I quoted that over and over and over again, but they refused to do that. At one point in time, there's a big picture of me at headquarters saying, you may think that I'm Mark Saunders, but really I'm a white supremacist. So, I mean, it was more about sound bites. What we have now are legitimate people from all over the world that are saying that there is a problem with the system. It needs to be fixed.
Well, let me do one follow-up on that. Here's Sandy Hudson, the co-founder of Black Lives Matter Toronto, writing in the Huffington Post, Black communities interact with police regularly because we live in neighborhoods police target. We are experts in the ways that police can brutalize and inflict violence upon us. Their presence is no assurance of safety. Wealthier, non-Black, non-Indigenous, privileged communities tend to feel safe because they have a rarely used option to call the police when they feel their safety is threatened. But they are generally not interacting with police. Their communities are not policed in the same way, and they are not targeted for criminalization. The very purpose of the police has always been antithetical to the safety of Black and Indigenous people. Can I get you to comment on that, Chief Saunders?
Sure. So there are a couple of things to that, Steve. First and foremost, again, I didn't see a solution there. And that's a very common theme. Great at pointing things out, but never necessarily a sustainable solution other than the money goes back to the community. How that money goes back to the community is what is critical if this is going to work. And so that's the first thing. And the second thing, I've been in communities for the past 5 years, never seen her in a community. So listen, if we're going to help communities, we have to get into the communities and hear them speak. I keep hearing a lot of times representatives of the community, and I go to the community and they go, who are they? So let's get this right and let's work collectively. That's what's important here. We can point fingers all day long. Nothing happens. It's about working collectively. There are things that the police have to do. That's just the way things are right now. If we can reduce the things we have to do, I'm all for it. But I'm all for it if there is a structure in place that is sustainable, that gives the right productivity to enhance community safety, which is the second goal in the modernization plan, to enhance partnerships to create better community safety. So I'm in alignment with that. This is not anything that's new to me, but again, absolutely zero solutions there.
Well, I'm happy to point out for the record that as the first black police chief in the city's history, you no doubt had an incredible burden on your shoulders, and you had sky-high expectations from many members of the black communities that you would be able to do what previous white predecessors had not been able to do, namely improve the relationship between the police and the black communities of this capital city. Do you think you succeeded in improving that relationship?
Yes, I've definitely moved it forward. My role is not to be the all-encompassing, because you're a black chief, everything changes. That's not how culture changes. If you look at some of the great leaders that were of color. Everything doesn't change just because of that. But the one thing that can't be denied is that I have a lived experience. That lived experience is also manifesting itself in the seat. I understand what it feels like to be in black skin and living in the neighborhoods. I understand what it's like to be in a store and being followed around by security, even as chief of the police. And my wife sits down from the back, she's white, and she watches this over and over again. There is systemic racism within our country. There is systemic racism right across the world. That's what these protests are about. And now it's time to get black people to executive tables, to have that power imbalance to be shifted, to have systems put in place that speaks to equity right across the board. That's not happening right now. When you don't have a computer in your house, you're at a 30% deficit in your educational growth and development. So where are the computers in those neighborhoods? And we can go on and on and on, Steve. You probably know this better than me. We need to get to the real truth, and we have to act on that truth.
Let me ask you about mental health, Chief. Do you think in this day and age, the Toronto Police Service ought to be responding to calls when the call is about mental health issues?
We're the ones being called. We're the ones being called. We are the de facto 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, including Christmas and New Year's Eve. We are it. Nobody else stands up. Nobody else takes these calls. We do it. And what we've done is we have enhanced our training. And our training is state-of-the-art. It's one of the best in the world, Steve. We utilize CAMH, we use medical facilities, we use psychologists, we use doctors, we speak to the Ontario Human Rights Commission, we speak to the Privacy Commission. It's written by a collective group, and it is evergreen. We're always learning how to improve on that. But until other systems are in place to take over these 30,000 calls in a system that actually works, I will gladly hand it off to them.
Okay, so given what you know right now, do you think it would be better in future, if it were possible, to create different systems for a different organization or institution to respond to these calls?
Well, look at the mental health issues that are happening in our city. The one thing that has grown every single year has been our calls for mental health. And so right now, the ones that don't have families are either with us being processed on the streets, occupying a hospital bed, or in correctional facilities. That's it. And so, if you want to say that, it's the police that's the problem, I'm telling you, it's the system that's a problem right now. And as that number keeps increasing, if you're going to have law enforcement looking after health and you're going to say all is well, if other systems aren't in play to take care of this, all is not well.
Well, I'm sure you saw Mayor Tory's press conference this morning in which he put forward a motion suggesting that alternative models of community safety response ought to be developed, the creation of a non-police-led response to calls which don't involve weapons or violence. Would you be for that?
Yeah, I want to see what this plan is going to look like. I think that some of the things are oversimplified. I've sat at many round tables for years, bringing all of the various stakeholders. We've all got up and cheered each other and said, this is a great thing, let's get out there, and nothing happens. And again, it speaks to the modernization plan, creating partnerships. If we're going to do this right, then others have to step up and be the 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week entity that steps in front of us and takes these calls on. But I just don't see it yet.
Well, okay, fair point. You know, of course, that if this does go forward, and if, in fact, an alternative mode of delivery can be created, they are going to want to fund it from the money that currently goes to the police budget. Would you understand that police budgets may have to be smaller in future years in order to accommodate this new delivery system?
Whatever needs to be done to enhance community safety, I'm all for it. But I just want to be cautious and say that it has to be built first before the funds are removed. 90% of my budget, salary and benefits, 90. That other 10%, Steve, has been tinkered with for as long as I can think. So if somebody wants to come in and do the line by line, they can have at it. So, if we want to have vehicles or gas or the ability to flush a toilet and they want to cut that down, by all means, go ahead. But 90% of our budget is salary and benefits.
You know, of course, the two Toronto City Councillors have filed a motion to cut the Toronto Police budget, which currently stands at north of $1 billion. They'd like to cut it by 10%, which would be a little over $120 million, and reallocate that money into social services. Your friend, Mr. McCormick from the Police Association, calls that grandstanding. What would you call it?
Well, if they're going to do that, and I'm responsible for community safety, adequate and effective policing by law. And so the numbers will dictate what we can and can't do. But by law, we have to provide that. And so if whatever comes across the table is not viable, if there aren't other things in place, then we'll be there to say you have to put other things in place before anything can happen. So, and I think I'm pretty sure at the end of the day, if it's done right, it's not to be punitive to the police, but it's to enhance community safety. And if that's the case, then they have to listen to all of the stakeholders and what will happen if this is done or what will happen if this is not done.
Chief Saunders, you told us earlier that you thought relations between your police service and the Black communities had been improved under your watch. And I wonder if you'd say the same thing about your relationship with the LGBTQ community.
Everything is evergreen. Some people, when I go into the community, fine, love me. Others, not so great. I understand. And if we're going to get this right in law enforcement, then the inclusion of all community is necessary for us to get it right. I've made a lot of effort to try to make things work. I've got lots of representatives that are helping as well. I've got neighborhood officers that are dedicated to that community. I know that the commander in that division is continuously updating me and advising me what the issues and concerns are. I've always offered my hand if there's anything that is needed, but there's still room to grow. And I will speak to the fact that this organization was the first law enforcement agency to have a gender-neutral facilities, and the commitment that any new building will always have that as a symbolism. Listen, we're trying to get this right. A lot of the members from the communities are really on side with the police, and we still have a lot of work to do and get to certain corners that are very hard for us to get to.
As I follow up on that, I guess I'd just point out a couple of things. Number one, of course, the police have quite notably been asked not to participate in the Pride Parade for a few years going now. And the second thing was, and for people who live outside Toronto and may not know all the details of this, there was a serial killer by the name of Bruce McArthur. And I guess at some point in the investigation, you famously said, or initially said, that there was no evidence that there was a serial killer operating in Toronto, and the disappearances of all of these gay men were not linked. And of course, it turned out to be quite the opposite. You know, as you look back, do you wish you hadn't said that?
Well, again, I was factually correct with what was said at that time. The evidence that showed the serial aspect of this investigation wasn't until January. On that date when I said what I said, it was because that's what I was told, and that's what my investigators believe. And these are highly trained investigators. It was not taken lightly. However, as evidence came in, and it came in a flash bang, things had changed drastically. When I say drastically, I mean lightning quick.
Chief, we're down to our last minute, and I guess my last question for you would be your successor. What advice would you give him or her for how to do this job well?
I spoke on it earlier, which is building that public trust, which is a lot easier said than done. Today's environments are very savvy. They want action. And they want that compassion. So I've invested in training to make sure that we are as best as we possibly can under every given circumstance. But you've got to be away from your desk. You've got to be out there. You've got to be in the community. You have to understand Toronto. You have to if you've got to come in and open a playbook on Toronto, other than visiting, I think that there's going to be a problem with that. So the city is the most diverse in the world for a reason, but it's also one of the most compassionate in the world. And so I was glad to have had the honor of serving the seat for the next 36 sleeps.
36 sleeps to go. Chief Saunders, we're really grateful that you would take so much time out of your schedule to be with us here on TVO tonight and take our questions. And we wish you well with whatever comes next after the end of July. Thanks so much, sir.
Thank you, Steve.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario. CPA Ontario is a regulator, an educator, a thought leader, and an advocate. We protect the public. We advance our profession. We guide our CPAs. We are CPA Ontario. And by viewers like you. Thank you.